They were teaching you, so you didn't have to buy
Mhm.
from them. I don't get it.
Yeah. And try to save America money by getting rid of like I guess seasonal workers that come in, you know, that come in to do the work for low fee, low pay, and they're going to expect Americans to jump up and say, "I want to do that. I want to do that." I mean, there should be. Honestly, Americans, if they really want America to work, they should send their kids out of high school. Say, "Well, forget McDonald's. You're going to go work the farm, because if not, we're going to be paying a lot of money for our stuff." And lo and behold, this just causes more chaos. It's a plan that's been going on forever, but changing the plan sometimes, ruins things. It's I don't know, it's weird.
Oh, I think all kids should go work on a farm. Of course, I did when
Yeah.
I was younger, you
I,
know.
I grew up in the city, so I started with, paper route, shining shoes, going around the dumpsters, getting aluminum cans,
I, well, I
going to the liquor
it,
stores, asking for summer jobs, sweep out things, clean their counters, and that's how I got
it
into it.
wasn't. Well, no, it wasn't a job for me though. Okay, see,
Mm,
that's the thing. Um, I always like went and helped out. Like at the restaurant, I'd go help the ladies at the
mm,
restaurant, and the some of the nice waitresses would give me a portion of their tips. They were so sweet,
mm,
um, and stuff like that. But no, Peggy and her husband were farmers, and I just remember is maybe in the end it was habit,
mm,
and they were older, but in the beginning it was just a lot of fun. We
mm.
would go out there and we would help them pick and harvest every year.
Right
And
on.
they would give us like we would take some of it home, some corn, some snap
Mm.
peas. I remember sitting out on the back porch snapping snap peas, all that stuff.
Yeah, there's like
um
there's benefits to it for sure. Like I could honestly say that my first part-time job under the table, I was in fourth grade. I went down to the pizza place next to the liquor store, and I was folding pizza boxes and cleaning tables, and I was getting free pizza every day at $40 a week. At a fourth
yeah,
grader, and that's where I started
yeah.
me going. Like this is beneficial to me, so I'm gonna
Oh,
continue with this.
she
Yeah.
she would teach me how to can stuff, how to preserve stuff. We'd go help her pick, and at the end of the day, uh, we would have this huge fresh meal, farm fresh meal,
Mm.
and Grandma and Peggy would make homemade ice cream. Peggy always made homemade butter pecan ice cream, and my grandma always made homemade strawberry ice cream with fresh strawberries.
Oh, that
It was
sounds
so
nice.
good. Oh, it was
Oh
so
man,
good.
that
Oh,
sounds
I
really
love.
good.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
my
So I just
typical meal when I was a kid was like, well, here's a loaf of bread and some bologna. Fight for the mayonnaise if there's any left.
I loved going out to the farm. I always thought it was fun.
I
Oh
know.
yeah.
All I know is I got up, went to the refrigerator, and then took a leak, and then come back, and those boys was calling each other's fags.
Yeah.
I was like, "What's up with all that, man? What triggered that?" You know?
Yeah, I don't know. I came in and some guy was like raging. I mean like raging, like foaming at the mouth, raging. And
Mhm, yeah.
Tog was like, I didn't say that. It wasn't me. And I was like, oh, I
What is
hope
a
you have an awesome stream, St. Tawny, and I will return when there is not a
uh,
random having a meltdown.
right, right. Well, he's new, he's famous. He's micro famous plus, I guess the fella is. He was talking about he was a scholar,
Yeah.
yeah, and an
And
intellectual,
and
learned intellectual, and he's got a big following or something,
oh,
and
also a musician that makes music nobody really heard before. It's yeah.
yeah, except his mom. She bought a CD from him
All
probably.
right.
But what is a cum guard? I've never heard of that.
It's something we made up. It was essentially like they were talking about masturbation at first, and like I think Will had said, all I need is my hand in a dick or something like that.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
and I was making fun like dudes who can do like no touch and just like they just sit there and edge all day and they just they're ready to go.
Oh yeah, I think I started that because I was talking about the surgery I had to have, and Will said being a good friend. He's like, because PJ, you can have my leg, you can have both my legs. All I need is just one arm. And never went
Yeah.
from.
Dude went off. That
He
made him so
did.
mad.
Yeah.
He's like, "How dare you
Uh,
talk about jizzing in my presence?"
cum guard. Oh, you know what
Yeah, for like in your pants.
that's what they call a in West Virginia. That's what they call a Walmart bag. Is a cum guard. It's a condom, a West Virginia condom.
Well, I think in Alabama,
Walmart
Walmart bags are their
bag.
underwear, so they have no choice.
Right, right. Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess jokes aren't meant for everyone. The whole
Yeah. It was
you
like a
gotta
rolling
have
gag. Mm, yeah.
righteous speak in your tongues.
Must be
Well,
That's
about.
not manly.
I don't know, that rando guy did not sound
Mm.
manly or righteous in his tone. Just saying.
And one thing I heard it was funny was he's in the military, and the military never allows things like this. The military, this military, that, and some kind of structure in that. And I thought that was kind of funny because I trained military personnel, and I didn't want to go on that part, but
well, he's probably a single fella and probably masturbates 2 or 3 times a day.
yeah,
And it probably bothers him. And he's probably religious, a little bit religious and famous. And
yeah, he did pull a little bit of the like righteousness and holy
right,
stuff, yeah, and eyes. What would you do before the eyes of something? Yeah.
right,
Almost fair.
exactly.
Mhm.
He was like a Pharisee. It's like, at least we wash our hands. But at that point, you didn't need to wash your hands because your hands weren't even involved in the subject. Like, he's getting mad over nothing.
Yep.
A
I'm
little
glad
cum
that
goes a long way, I guess.
he came on screen half naked. I was like, we got a nudist. We got a nudist. I said, sir, do you have on underwear? He said, yeah.
Is it optional?
I tried to tell him that this place we're equals. We're equals here.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I tried to tell him, but I don't think he heard me.
No, he clearly wants to be above from what I heard. I didn't stay very long. I was just like, that guy's weird. I don't have time for him. And then I left.
I mean, he really couldn't get anybody couldn't get a word in, so he wasn't listening to anybody. He was just going ranting and raving about nothing really, nonsense. I'm a little interested to see. He says he has a channel where he has his music and he evaluates, um, the interaction between people. He studies people. That sounds kind of interesting.
I mean, we all study people.
Yeah,
How we study people is different,
mhm.
but we all
but
don't we all study people?
mhm. but he like
I don't know.
announces it like he's a scholar and a linguist, and he just goes like tries to put himself on a. I even told him himself. I said, "Get off your high horse, man, because it's not going to get you anywhere here." It's
Find more easily impressed people. I don't know.
right. Hmm.
Maybe he's setting up a boundary by saying so. So, like, he's saying, I'm not here for formal relationships. I'm here to observe your behavior and your actions and see what that leads for the assumed nation and how blah
Well,
blah
that
blah, blah whatever agenda
Oh, the
he
fall of
awfully
has.
America.
And
that's
Yeah, he was
awfully
pulling.
presumptuous of him to assume he would be somebody I would invest in to begin with.
He reminded me a lot of the Black Hebrew Israelite guy, that Michael Smith, because he kept saying the fall of America. This is why America is fallen. Rome. He was saying the exact same spiel as the Black Hebrew Israelite
Uh,
guy
yeah,
says
that
about
triggered
America.
me. That
Yeah.
triggered me, man.
Mhm.
Talk smack about.
Yeah, like if you don't, I mean, the way he's going on about it, my part of my American side was like, if you don't like it, get the fuck out. If you, it's America, man.
Um, I think one of the great things about this country is our room for dissent, and it's something I find absolutely essential. So while I don't
Mm.
mind dissent, There is a difference between dissent and advocating for the destruction of.
Right.
One I can
Yeah.
appreciate, and the other I not so much.
Yeah, 'cause it's part of a process. I see it's a wave. Things want to go one way, but it down turns to the wave, and then people see the bad things, and it goes back up again. It just go back and forth, and hopefully it evens itself out. And right now, we're just a point where that wave is, pretty big right now. And that's just how it goes. Just
Right. I
hmm
mean, like, I get frustrated at the things happening. I get frustrated because I think some things happening are absolutely atrocious. But I
yeah.
don't like hate America. I don't want America to try to be England, right? Like I don't
hmm
want that.
Right.
So like dissent, fine. But when you're advocating for the destruction of or like some completely different system, right? Like no,
hmm
no, thank you.
It's
That's not what I
sounds
meant.
like you guys need an advocate to vote for so that your voice can be heard.
uh
Let me be
no,
that representative.
no, 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 no. See, my problem is not that we're a democratic republic. That's not my issue. My that could function well. My issue is what we've made um running look like, and the process, and the kind of people that get to even have their name on the ticket, right? I think that's a
hmm
problem.
Yeah, all the
um
bureaucracy. Like you need to have 50 said documents signed in all 50 states in order to run. Um, so there's a lot of paperwork involved with all the states just to
it's
even
not
get started on the
it,
campaign. So it's
it's
crazy.
not just that. I think if you look back in history, a lot of the presidents that were really remembered for doing big things, taking big risks, and things like that. They were poor people, right? They were the common man. They represented the common man because they were the common man. You know what I'm saying? Lincoln grew up in a one-room log cabin. Jefferson was in debt his entire life. That's why we have the Library of Congress. But that couldn't happen today. You're the average Joe can't run today. It
Right.
costs millions and millions to throw your hat in the ring, much less get any kind of publicity out there,
hmm
right?
Yep.
Nobody actually has an even shot. And then, so in order to get those millions and millions, is Joe Smo going to start out in his on his block and build from there? No, you have to get big corporate donors, right? You,
Yeah.
you have to get all it's we've made it a circus, and I think that's a problem.
Yeah. Lobbying is the worst thing that any country can do because it's just going to cater to those who have the money. That's what
And
we
the
have.
fake debates and the
hmm
pac funds and the just we turned it into a
Well,
circus,
that's
and I
that's what
think
I'm
that's
talking
gross.
about. The moment you invoke the money, that's where I start talking about the God we all worship, the mammon. That isn't even a real God. I'm just saying it's
Yeah.
the principle on the institution of debt. It's not an actual God. It's just the thing that the fantasy we all live our lives around. That's real
hmm
to us because it makes things happen. It's insane.
Yeah.
And then the cult of personality thing, they warned us,
Mhm.
who was it? It was Nixon and someone else, I think. The first televised debate. And they found it particularly interesting because not everybody had TVs, TVs were new and all that. And they found it really interesting because the people who listened to it on the radio thought Guy A clearly won the debate. And the people who
Mhm.
watched it on TV thought Guy B clearly won the debate.
Mm.
And the interesting thing is Guy B was closer to conventionally attractive.
Ah, yeah,
Isn't that interesting?
yeah. It's been proven
And
quite a bit
so,
where the attractive
yeah,
students get the better grades, get the more
Nixon was
attention.
hot.
Yeah,
Nixon was hot. He was running.
I don't know. There's a lot that goes into it, but I think we've leaned into making it.
Seeing and the lions and the Christian just
There's always been that, and there's
yeah.
always that civility's gone from politics. Have you seen some of the shit they said about each other in those feuds? I mean, they made incest accusations,
Oh,
they
I
published
remember
it in
reading something about
newspapers,
yeah,
they did
wasn't it
all
Grant?
kinds of
I
shit.
think it was called one
A
had
fucker.
syphilis and the other person was actually a woman and they're going back and forth. It's really
Oh,
funny.
yeah.
It's mhm,
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've always had that, but
mhm.
you didn't have this like corporate sponsorship of it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
And the promotion of right, the newspapers will
And
just print what they heard. Now they're want to say because they're
That's
told to say by their owners.
fine, which has a tie and as a hold in a lot of three,
Mhm.
and then that's probably the problem if it has a lot of sway,
Oh, totally. Yeah.
like just
Mm,
those three alone, like because
mhm.
the other two, government and corporation, that's fine for the atheist, but when you get the spiritualism behind it, that's for
I'm a I'm a I'm a non-believer, and I'm going to go ahead and say that no, no, it's not okay. Don't love the corporation and the government thing. I don't. I think government should be for the people instead of restricting people and giving businesses a pass. I think we should be doing the other thing. I think we should be restricting businesses and giving the people a pass. Like, what the fuck is happening? This is not okay. Nothing about this is okay. I do not
Yeah.
enjoy this. There you should I should walk into Congress and see representatives of the people. I should not walk into Congress and find my representatives hanging out with lobbyists from Coca-Cola and fucking
Mhm.
that Crayola, Mark
the
Zuckerberg,
only the
Facebook.
only
I
problem
shouldn't
with
walk into
that
Congress and see that.
that like membership and all that, like when you're in those
Oh, it was definitely God. Yeah.
Well, then you're golden.
Well, yeah, of course, but I'm not under the law. Is the point I'm making? And a lot of people
Right.
assess themselves either by civil law or mysticism, uh, or the law itself, according to the law. If you look at a woman lustfully, you no. Here's my favorite one. Hey, hey, you, come here. Have you ever looked at a bunhole lustfully? You are a sodomite.
That's nowhere in scripture.
I know but it is a takeoff on the scripture that says if you look at a woman covetously,
Yeah, but that's a woman who's already married, not an unmarried woman that you're thinking of making your wife.
right? Now, a lot of people assume covetously means with sexual titillation.
Hmm.
Look at a woman with sexual titillation and pause for more than, 1 nanosecond. You, sir, are an adulterer. Any woman, doesn't matter. Marriage better not. If you look at a woman lustfully,
Can I look at my own property lustfully or
no,
covetously?
excellent legal question. Shall we consult our local legalists like Eric or JG or JG, who champions the ministry of death? And he loves it. He loves it. It's the greatest thing since sliced bread. The ministry of death, the law, pushing the law. Yeah, I forgot that JG is simulcasting allegedly this
Yeah.
broadcast.
It's funny because my wife and I were kind of looking at our property a little lustfully this morning because we have my property. I have 3/4 of an acre that goes to the ditch, and the block behind us, people will sometimes walk along the ditch and they go into my property to take a shortcut, so they have to go around the block. And we're talking about putting a fence up, but the city wants you to put a fence up 3 to 5 feet within your own property. I said, I'm not going to give those fuckers a free sidewalk, So it's like, what do I do?
Well, that is the problem, and that happens in lots of states. They're going to say that you're required to provide an easement.
Mhm. Yeah, that's kind of sucks because these walk their dogs through. So I had to call the law on one dude because I was lining the edge of my property with my broken tree branches that fall down to give my like a little makeshift fence to keep their dogs and them out of my yard.
Do you want to
And
know
I,
what measure I took that you could use also? I'm assuming I have a no trespassing, and then I state 2 Texas ordinances. And
uh,
basically, it means once you get off of the public street and literally onto the curb of my property, even the easement, I have a right to shoot you.
uh,
Texas Penal Code 9.42.
I do
So
have no
anyone with a cell
trespassing signs
phone,
in my barn.
yeah, as long
Mhm.
as it's every 1,000 feet and it's clearly
Okay.
marked,
Oh,
then
it should
as
be
soon
okay.
as
Yeah, I have no trespassing on my barn and my shed
Remind
on
me
the other side
not
of the
to
yard,
peep
both
in your
yards.
window.
oh, you
Gee.
can peep in my window all you want. People walk. There's a green belt with a pathway behind my house, and I walk around nude. If they happen to look through
Dude,
my windows, they're gonna see
you
what they
can't even
see.
watch a family eat anymore, dude. It's ridiculous, right? You
Yep.
can't even sit at someone's window and just a little eye in there. The law.
Look at that chicken. What kind of gravy is that?
But no, I mean, literally, I walk around nude all the time. If they happen to look through my plate glass windows and see me, they're the ones that chose to look into my house.
True.
Does
Yeah.
God does God adore you when you pop a boner?
He does. He lets me know. Thank you, my good and faithful servant.
What I don't understand, Saint T, is whatever happened to moderation, or it's so black and white now, dude. And with
Mm.
application of law, or there's no context or no letter, right? Or spirit of it. It is just like black and white. I don't know any better nonsense. And I don't think that that's wise. I agree it's not right to, smoke crack. Not a good idea, right? Probably not a good idea.
Well,
But I'm not going to say don't do it. how do you know it's not right to smoke crack? Probably because you saw a bunch of people smoking crack and you were like, oh man, that sucks. Probably not a good idea to do that,
Right.
right?
Well,
But
if you ask JG will insist on right wrongism, binary consideration. Right, JG? He'll insist. But I say this I say that binary consideration is a wee bit simplistic when it comes to contemplating the truthful goodness of life, liberty, boners, good food, blessings from God, young health. Yeah, celebrating young health while being adored by God. Yep.
You know, a funny example of something like that, like a functioning alcoholic. I had a friend who's a functioning meth head, where
Oh,
his parents caught him doing meth. He's doing doing meth at home, so
I
they
hope he
kick
has a
him
good
out. They
death.
call the cops. He ends up in jail, losing his job. This happened several times, and they finally realized, let him smoke his meth because he works on it. He works as mechanic. He does all kinds of stuff on this meth. And if they don't get him in trouble with the law, he pays his rent. He's a functioning meth head. It's just the way it goes. Take him off of it, he's a bum. Get him in trouble for it, he's in trouble. But if they let him do it, he's working. He stays.
That's
Yeah,
how a
weird.
lot of adults were when I was a kid, man. They were
Mm.
hard drinkers, man.
Oh, my father was a functioning
Adults were
alcoholic. He
hard
would not.
drinkers
Yeah,
and
he wouldn't
hard
leave the house without a
smokers,
beer in his hand.
but they were functional.
Mhm.
Yeah, they were very
Yeah,
functional.
my pops was like that. Alcoholics like crazy. Just yeah, always drinking but working. Doing
I
something.
saw my mama grow out
no,
of it.
that's not well. Like that's you shouldn't do that, right? That shouldn't be the outcome. But like people that don't live life, that haven't lived, right? Like I see, like if you're on top of the mountain, dude, like
Mhm.
that's not where it is. Life's not there, dude. You got to get down in the shit. And when you get in the shit, you realize, dude, that some things work for you and some things don't work for you. And,
Mhm.
and, and life, this is life, dude. It's not like some magical thing in your mind, some mystical place where you can just go to and everything's perfect. When you're
Welcome
in the
to
True.
shit,
Yeah.
when you're in the shit, dude, it's not perfect. Life is not perfect, right? Just because I said, I got a wife and a kid and a family and things are reasonably stable, doesn't mean that you're not in the shit, dude. Right? There's a
True that.
whole other pile of problems that I have, dude, regardless, that are much more complicated
Yeah.
than worrying about if I looked at a girl wrong.
Uh,
it
That's
doesn't seem timely for you to waste your focus on such considerations.
those are something that you teach 12-year-olds, 12-year-old boys, and so at summer, fucking church school or whatever, dude. Talking to grown men with children about lust. Give me a break. Maybe you should look in the mirror.
The one who smelt it dealt it.
The way it goes, bro.
yeah, my wife's like really traditional. She believes that a girl can do what a man does and still be a woman. She classifies people quite harshly sometimes, but
She sounds like a keeper. Sounds like a keeper.
oh yeah, it's the good type of traditional.
Yeah.
Yep. Hmm.
Gotta love a barefoot woman who makes a lot of money, man.
Well, makes the money not really, but she's
You
good.
go, baby. It's sweet to you. Good God.
Yeah, I can't complain. I have no complaints on her.
But that is interesting. So you're saying that a woman can't be a slut, but a man can be a.
Well, it's similar thing. Like a girl can do what a man
That
does and still be a
true? Is that
woman
true?
because the mentality is different. I guess this is kind of traditional. I guess what women
Uh-huh,
should be.
uh-huh,
Yeah.
uh-huh. That sounds good old fashioned Mexican Catholic heritage here, bro.
Pure
Yeah.
Irish,
Oh,
Irish blood. Yeah,
yeah.
she's got did the whole thing. Pretty much the whitest white chick you can find. I wouldn't. I didn't even think about. I dated a black girl before I dated a Mexican chick. Cause yeah, back in the day, I never dated Mexican chicks because they're so freaking. I don't know. Just yeah, not my thing. I guess.
So you're saying your wife is the only human being you've ever had hot sex with?
Honestly, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, cool.
I'm out of here.
Later,
Good
Terry.
day.
Hey, dude, take care, man.
Oh boy. Phew. Is JG still simulcasting this? Does anybody have any data on that?
I have
Well,
no
Peter
idea.
should know. I mean, Peter's like all over him.
Since I have JG's here, maybe I should instruct him or chide him
Maybe.
or exhort him. You know, you want a piece of St. Tommy's tongue, do you? Come here. Come here,
Step
JG.
on in.
Let me get my words into your mind for gracious consideration about presuppositional apologetics, its goals, its habits, its frequencies, uh, the dogmatic implication. Here it goes. No, I can't do that one. I'll try it again. The dogmatic implement, implementation. Yes, the dogmatic implementation of presuppositional apologetics by J.G. Van Til. But I don't know how to charge you, JG. I don't know. I know that folks were on my ass when I went in there to your little live stream, to your little sacred live stream. Yeah, with all your fancy, some very quality music. Yeah, man, I got chided in JG's side chat.
But you know, the problem with precept is you begin with a false presumption, and then everything is based upon that false presumption. Then, of course, everything's going to be false. That's why I like evidentialism.
Day after day, alone on a hill, the man with presuppositional apologetics was keeping perfectly still. We all saw him. He knew we were the fools. He don't like us. The pre-supper on the hill sees the world spinning round and the eyes in his head. Imagine objective morality. You ever heard that song, Hillary?
No,
You're not familiar with the Beatles?
no, not at all.
Wow, I forget. There's a new category of I'm not a boomer. I found out that I'm not a boomer. I'm very pleased.
Mm.
I'm a Jones generation.
Oh,
Yeah, it's new. It's new. I've never liked. I've never quite been comfortable with being a boomer. It's been embarrassing. Yeah, the Jones generation.
Is that Jim Jones or Davy Jones?
Yeah, exactly.
Right on. I could hide beneath the wings.
Let's employ some reasoning of associations and get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, I guess that word boomer just seems to, boxer shorts and t-shirt on the porch and shaking your cane at the kids too much, right? It's just too ancient, too
The
more than
loosening
old
of
school.
the loosening of associations, can it be weaponized? What say you, Hillary?
Well, anything can be weaponized.
Ah, good point. And a weapon can be used in how many ways?
I don't know.
Okay.
Any which way you
A
can.
guess. How about a guess? Loosen up. How about a guess? How many
A
ways?
bunch. A bunch.
A bunch? Okay, at least a bunch. Not a lot, a bunch. Uh-huh. That's like, I think a bunch qualifies from 40% to 49% is a bunch. A lot is over 50%.
Okay.
And most is 90%.
That sounds about right. 85 to 90%.
Okay, yeah, yeah, I could do 87.5%. Yeah, 85. Whose dogma do you like best? Ace's dogma of eventual universal reconciliation to God, or JG's presuppositional script, guaranteed to dismember an interlocutor's worldview before his eyes? I mean, just take him apart. Bing, bang, boom, get out. Which dogma do you like best, Hillary? JG's presup or Ace's universalism?
Definitely aces.
Yeah, me too.
I made a crack on Aces on the side there. He was talking about how could you be burned in hell with worms? Worms can't live in fire. So I put on the side there. So if you can imagine heaven and a god, you can't imagine fireworms. That's your own goddamn imagination.
Uh, I hope God ain't that.
And it's funny, anything and everything's possible. Could breathe
Is
life
God
into
that
clay,
sadistic?
take a
Surely not,
rib,
Hillary.
but can't make a fireworm. I don't get it.
Fireworms.
Get them where they're hot.
Oh, look at all of that. Look, these rats. There's Varm. Hey, Varm. I heard that you got roasted over at JG's the other day, scorned, upbraided, labeled, pigeonholed, straw manned. Yeah, I heard that. Yeah. Varm took a dog pile. They tag team bludgeoned Varm and besmirched him, and Varm's persecution complex. He wasn't in. Varm was not pleased. No, he was like, "Come on, fellas, shit."
Yeah, it's the underhandedness that a lot of Christians do, and the sleight of words and the movement of definitions of words that they try to put in your mouth that
I
just
certify.
kill the conversation for me when it comes to sometimes with some people.
I certify. I hereby officially, with my official ambassador's tongue, certify uh, Varm, aka Dirty Varmint, to be a follower of the truth. That rascal loves the truth. He likes the truth. And he likes truthful things. And I certify him, Saint Tommy of God, this day, this hour, this sacred hour, hereby again officially certifies Varmint, God's Varm,
Truth shall set you free.
to be a lover and or follower of the truth during waking moments and often. He has truthful proclivities
Mm.
and truthful inclinations
If everything was truth, there wouldn't be bad businesses.
and truthful tendencies. Yes, I have beheld it. I am a fruit spotter, not a fruit inspector. I spot fruit with my official tongue to your eardrums. Hearer, that is all. You ever seen the Blues Brothers movie, Hillary? He went to masturbate or go to the restroom or something.
I think most people have seen that movie, that 85, 95%. Generational, of course.
But anyway, let's see. Oh, look. Oh my God. Look. JG's doing he's doing an expose.
Oh,
Oh my.
on
Oh
what?
man, that must be godly. That must be godly feeling to be doing a moral relativism expose. Oh my gosh. Analyzing semi delusional dogmas of our local free willies, JG, aces, miscellaneous knowledge popes, and mystics. Hmm. Could it be that presuppositional apologetics is semi delusional in rhetoric, logic, or emotionalism? It feels so right. Like you got the tiger by the tail. Yeah. The euphoric effects of eclectic dogma by St. Tommy Van Til. Yes.
You gotta be gentle with some of them tigers, they might tear.
Oh man, it's a rhetorical tiger. Powerful thing, words and rationale and logic and reason and presuppositions, tearing down other men's worldview. Yeah. How semi delusional is that? Well, if it's semi delusional, maybe it's semi truthful. Well, that's looking on the bright side of it. There you go. If it is semi truthful, in what way is it semi truthful? Presuppositional apologetics. I mean, maybe it's just something to do on the internet, day after day.
Might be habit forming, to become a part of the
Yeah.
process.
I would say to a good presuppositionalist like our JG, I would say to him, JG, consider trading up to
Hmm.
forsaking presuppositional apologetics and the whole darkened school of social interlocuting. Just forsake all that for the gospel.
But
Yeah,
Saint Tommy, are you are as a sociology expert, are you forsaking his psychology and the reason why he finds it presuppositionalism comforting? Because he feels so little, he feels so much lack of control in his own life that he needs to have someone else tell him that they are certain on his behalf.
well, yeah,
And
but doesn't everybody?
no, I don't need anyone to
Mhm.
tell me that they're certain on my behalf.
Well, I guess we all can't be perfectly mentally healthy like JG.
Well, I know why you say that, but my contention is the opposite, that he is thoroughly disease ridden, and that's why he needs
He's,
presuppositionalism.
Yeah.
I think it's just a mind buzz. It's have you ever been God drunk? Theology,
Yeah, yeah, a
theology
few
drunk,
times.
reason, drunk on reasoning, drunk
But
on logic,
but did
drunk
you ask me
on
which grade I was
mantras.
in?
Wait, I'm on a roll. Drunk
Okay.
on mantras, on rational mantras like Black Lives Matter, or yeah, mantras. Don't want to forget those. Drunk on them, drunk on reasoning. And I think presuppositional apologetics is an intricate school of contemplation. Simplistic, you know what I'm saying? But intricate, intricate.
It is
Good.
intricate, but it all comes down to one thing. Either that first presupposition has to be true or false. And then all the rest of it is just fancy lace that it tries to dress it up with. But
Yeah,
if your first beginning presupposition is false, then the whole thing crumbles.
mm, it's like a board
Oh,
game. It could be as simple as Sorry or complicated as Monopoly, but it's still based on that board game. The
my
rules.
Yep.
worldview stands. I don't care if you kick one stilt out from the bottom of it. I don't give a shit. My worldview is from God. These men like JG come around here talking about, I've got the Christian worldview. I'm like, you ain't got squat diddly, sunshine. Only Jesus has the Christian worldview. And I don't know what in the hell they're talking about. They're hooked on some kind of rational mantraism. Uh, One Christian worldview. Come on, boys. Come on, brothers. There are as many Christian worldviews as there are Christians rolling around, breathing on the earth. Yes.
Did it, but I was trying to type in side chat, and it came up with all the activity that Peter W. said over the last 12 years. That is
Oh, wow.
bizarre. So it must be some macro that the keyboard did while I was just trying to type my
Uh-huh,
message.
uh-huh. There's a place you can do research like that. It's
Yeah,
in
I
those
wasn't
three
aware of it.
dots. It's in those three dots at the top right of the side chat.
Okay. Wow.
I'd hate to look at mine. God, it's like an IP address log, you know?
Yeah.
It's like embarrassing. All the shit I say. I talk some schmack and little expose, little schoolboys, legalistic schoolboys like JG love to do some exposing, don't you, JG? He's a schoolboy.
He likes to expose schoolboys. That sounds right.
No, no, he is a schoolboy, and
Oh.
he likes to expose what he might eventually come across, antinomians.
Oh.
It's a fancy little term that some presuppers eventually find. It's unbiblical.
And now I forgot the message I was going to try and type to Peter. It was something
Oh,
about what he wrote the lyrics.
JG, is it not against the YouTube rules to simulcast a simulcast?
It sure is, especially if he's not a
Yeah,
member of the
JG,
panel.
you kind of jumping
So,
a few mores there, ain't you? Oh, it's not the mores that you're concerned with; it's the law.
oh, well, he's in luck then because the law is that his channel has to be shut down if someone lodges a complaint.
Wait, doesn't he have to be convicted before his?
No,
And no one has made any charges.
that's correct. No one has made any charges yet,
That's
but
right.
should
That's
someone,
right. So yeah, yeah,
but should someone seek universal justice, then the
No,
YouTube God will
I'm
come
not under
down
the
mightily
law.
upon
I'm
him.
not under the law. I don't have to condemn JG or make trouble for him.
It's okay. JG will objectively condemn himself and has.
How about them apples? About that too, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, self-condemnation. It's a habit of men like JG. They love it.
Yep.
Self-condemnation. Love that shit. Hooked on it. And Eric. Eric had the nerve to talk shit about my wife. I was like, fuck that.
Ooh.
I know, man.
Yes.
It's like,
Considering
damn,
that he did
man.
nothing to protect his own wife when that truck driver tried to do those horrible things, that really takes some nerve.
Well, you know, starting to ask about a man's wife, man, it's kind of fucking petty.
It is, especially after the spontaneous public utterances that he has made about his own.
I told him I didn't answer questions from men who acted like reformed sodomites.
Oh, that's good. That was a good response.
Yeah, about my wife. I don't answer questions about my wife to men who act like reformed sodomites. Yeah, that was it was close. That was close. But I did find it offensive, you know. Besmirching my reputation. One of my reputations. Oh my. And what? You say that Eric confessed to not protecting his wife?
That's correct.
Oh my. Maybe it was at a moment of youthful stupidity, or maybe he was drunk. Trying to make a case for him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought he got in the way of the truck driver's gun or something. And
No, he did some sort of a magic spell that froze the truck driver in place.
okay, did God do the spell, or did Eric do the spell?
Eric invoked the spell that God may or may not have
Oh,
followed up on.
so Eric invoked God to do it,
Well,
or
no. I think that Eric was practicing witchcraft that God may have
oh my.
chosen to do
All right.
something for his own purpose and not Eric's.
Well, I would
So,
say if you were there, Hillary, I would
Mhm.
avoid, and you saw that miracle happen. Let's say a miracle happened and you were there and you saw it. Who I would be slow to ascribing it to the power of the devil. At least
oh no,
it'd
no,
be
that's
from
not
the
what I'm
power
saying.
of God.
No,
You
what
don't
I'm
want to do
saying is
that
that no, what I'm saying is that what Eric meant for evil, God
there.
turned for good.
Oh,
Eric engaged in witchcraft, and God said, I'm not going to let this Shlomo, get away with this. I'm still going to protect his wife, even though he's a filthy, disgusting creature that doesn't do anything to protect his wife.
it happens, I guess, in the best
Yeah.
of families. Yeah. And you say she was a filthy, disgusting creature?
No, Eric was
Oh,
the filthy,
oh,
disgusting
oh,
creature that refused to come to his wife's aid and assistance.
right.
You fuck with my wife, I'll chop your dick off and I'll wear it as a necklace.
You remember,
Amen.
hey, you remember that time I made that mistake of talking loosely around your girlfriend who ended up being your wife?
It must not have been that important.
It must not have been. I'm glad it wasn't. I'm glad. Its net effect was negligible.
Well, I mean, there's dumb internet stuff, and then there's real life, right?
Right, right,
That's, if you can't take a joke, which it was,
right.
it's not like I'm in another room and I'm like saying stuff and being gay.
Is anyone within earshot? Well, nah, I can't say that. Never mind.
Me?
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
I have my
you,
headphones in. It's fine.
right? I remember those words. See if my memory is accurate. I said, "Give that woman a baby. She wants a baby, and if you won't rise to the challenge, give her my number."
And then Larry said, "I've already given her 4. We don't
And,
need a 5th."
and man, the crowd, the panel went wild, man. The panel went wild. They said, "Shut up, Tommy, shut up. How dare you say such a thing?" Because his girlfriend was within earshot, and I didn't know. I didn't know she was within earshot. My dumb ass.
Dude, I'm trying to remember this. This is a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago, but it's not important. It's probably much more important to me than you, which is best.
I was thinking about how to help out JG, if he's watching. You know what you need to do, dude? You got to fuck a fat chick. You got to fuck a couple fat chicks. Get out of your system, dude. And you'll be okay, dude. Get a couple of them back to back. Go on Tinder or whatever the boys are using these days. You know what I'm saying?
That what? How about just
That's what you need.
How about date a fat chick? Does he have to fuck one, or can he just date?
Well, what I think it really is I don't think it's anything really deep down. I think it's just a lot of blockage, And once you get it out a couple times, it takes a couple times, right? And then you kind of wake up, snap out of it, dude. I think that's what's going on. He's got single man like dementia, or single man like angry.
You speak from experience. You speak from experience, I take it. Yes.
Yeah. Forced abstinence is not good.
Okay.
Especially on yourself. If like, I don't know, that's people like would probably say to be abstinent and blah 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 and all this stuff. But I am actually of the said mind that if you are so out of your shit that you are delusional and yelling at people on the internet, it might be time to get and touch and feel and smell around you. It might be time to put your feet on the ground and fuck a fat chick or 2. And
Come back down to earth.
Yeah, bro. Because when you don't have social contact, just anyone in general, you live up on the mountain, right? And all you can do is just look down at people eventually, because your resentments just climb you up the mountain, right? And you got your battle right there.
Not really
Maybe
know reality
JG
because they only perceive reality by their
JG
own eyes, not experiencing
I'm
it.
sorry to step on you, but maybe
Oh.
JG would like to come in and comment on that advice.
Well, I sure wish that he could find somebody's balls so that he could come in and comment.
Well, JG's a very insulated man. He's he values privacy very highly, and so he never talks about himself. He never confesses what he goes through or what he bears or who he is.
Well, he made me a challenge that I agreed to, and I took him up on it, and then he didn't like it.
Oh, okay. Have you reissued the challenge lately?
No, he issued me the challenge, and I just accepted it, and I did a public records search and found out the information that he requested, and I delivered it to him.
How'd you deliver it to him?
Admittedly, it was probably in a very adversarial manner.
Okay, well, I don't want to pry or anything, but I'm hoping you didn't do no doxing or something
No, I didn't.
reckless and terrible.
I just let him know that I was capable of the very thing that he requested. So he probably shouldn't make public requests in the future if he doesn't want them
I
followed
see.
up
So
on.
he red flagged you. He not like somebody yeah, okay. And he got uh
He found out that he wasn't
mad.
untouchable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Wow. Shit, Hillary, you probably know who my first girlfriend was.
I haven't looked into it, but give me 3 days and I could probably find out.
That's what I'm thinking. Exactly. She climbed in through the bedroom window. I'm surprised you haven't heard every Beatles tune that's ever been produced, Hillary.
I've never been that into the Beatles.
Yeah.
Because they're horrible, dude.
Yeah, I know. Well, they were just some of the shit's good, but they were what, glass ceiling breakers in some ways.
Trying to think, dude, what was a good Beatles song?
Kind of
Hey
like
Jude, that's all right.
The Mona Lisa was a very mediocre painting, but it was first, and that's part of its quality. Same with the
It was
Beatles.
the first boy band. It was the first commercial band that got big, right? That's what it was. It was a corporate fucking shitstorm.
In a way, they kind of started the hair bands too, the hair bands of the 80s, except theirs was a bowl cut.
There's been a progression of this. That they were one of the first ones.
Oh shit! I got a call. Excuse me.
All those bands were, dude. Rolling Stone, every single fucking big band, dude. That's all they are. It's just marketing, trying to make you think certain things and feel certain ways.
Right.
That's why there's like eras of music now, dude. In normal society, we all just play music and we like what we like, and things just happen. But we have this programmed like section decade of music where all these people think alike. Social engineering, predictive programming. Same tempo, same chords, same song length of each section, chorus, bridge, verse, intro.
Mhm.
They're all roughly the same, right? They're all 4/4, 3/4. Anything that's really out of time is viewed as like eclectic or something. When you could
Yeah.
be like listening to something in 7/8, and they're all like, "Wow, this is crazy, bro," and you're just like, "Okay, you programmed like a monkey hitting a tree with a bone." Trying to think of the last good song experience I had when that changed me.
Mm.
I know when I listened to Stairway to Heaven for the first time when I was a child, that changed me. It taught me that songs are about narratives, they're about experiences. It was the first song that made me think that there was a mystery there. There is.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like what songs really hit me. I think the ones that had like stories to them, like Mr. Bojangles by Sammy Davis Jr. had a little story, to it. It made you think a little bit about life.
Or the ones that are like they're all about a particular emotion, or
Yeah.
like love is the big thing, right? A lot of love songs and shit.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because my wife just said, what did you say, Kat? Delilah. That's a big emotional, stress love song about, cheating woman and, even going as far as a murder. Very, very, the right word for it, but yeah, different. Tom Jones, I think, right? 'Cause, 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 'cause,
I can't imagine listening to like wet ass pussy and getting some sort of mystical experience from it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think because I haven't really listened to any of this kind of shit, dude, and I don't know what it's like growing up with this kind of shit.
When I was 19 and I listened to Nine Inch Nails' Pretty Hate Machine and I Want to Fuck You Like an Animal, I had a mystical experience. It really opened my eyes to a number of philosophical points that I had not previously considered. And I'm saying that sincerely.
Hmm. Did they do Man in a Box? Because I found that one pretty deep.
That was Alice in Chains, and that
Alice
was
in
also
Chains.
excellent.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
I like the lyrics on that one.
Grunge is white people blues, dude.
Yep.
That's all grunge is.
Yeah, true.
Just Seattle's blues, because it's all blues based. It's all blues bars and fucking pentatonic, bullshit, right? It's all it is.
EDA, GAD, yeah.
They add a couple minors in there, dude, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
All good. Like Pearl Jam, that's all that is.
Yeah, looking at my guitar, the ultimate guitar things where I started learning to play guitar. Most of the songs that are on there are grunge, or basically, like you said, like a blues chord progression or altered one. Yeah.
It just had new no, they were really good. I'm just trying to think of all these. I had a boxer on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like remember Alice in Chains on the plug, dude.
Yeah, totally.
Or Nirvana, like that plug. It kind of sounds like a moody emo blues band.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I had a crate. I was just learning to play guitar, but I remember I got a crate that had a DSP on there, and it had the reverb and all that delay and everything.
Yeah, dude. Like most amps in the '90s, they had stock reverb and like a little delay channel, dude. I remember that.
Yeah, I have a Cube amp right now, a Roland. It has all kinds of shit on here. You can even go from like a tube to a solid state to a British style amp, all kinds of different.
How big is the Cube? Is it like
It's the 12-inch, big one.
So is it 100
what?
watt or how big is it? How big is the
80
wattage?
80.
That's pretty big, dude.
Yeah, I got a little rollers here. It's a good amp. It's really nice. Sounds really good. And I got some cool little effects pedals here. I kind of go with the classic effects pedals. I got the Centavo style one, the Rat, of course, Jimi Hendrix fuzz pedal, and I got the Roland. What is this guy? It's a big ass one, wood sides, modulation, and like a chorus delay effect on it. It's pretty sweet. Old school stuff.
I was really into Boss pedals back in the day.
Oh, right on, yeah.
Like when I first started playing, dude, like it's sort of hard to find an orange Boss pedal like on the cheap, but I remember back in yeah. I remember getting crazy sounds out of that thing, dude.
On my I have different the digital audio workstations. I work with different ones for fun, just to experiment with them. But man, I tell you, I got like hundreds of pedals and stuff on there. They emulate it. It's a lot of fun to play with. Tons of stuff. You ever get into that stuff?
Hell yeah, dude. I have my primary amp is a Line 6 Flexstone 2.
Oh,
it's a real rare like I can't remember when it came out, but it was in the 90s, right? It's the Flexstone 2. It's not the original. The original Flexstone, I think, was their premier, was Line 6's first premier digital amp.
You have the actual amp?
Yeah. They got it's a Flexstone 2. Yeah. It's like I think it's 200 watts, but it's all digital, so it doesn't it doesn't actually give you like, dude, if you put a 200 tube watt or tube amp up, it
Mhm.
thumps, but this
Yeah.
thing doesn't thump. Like it's a studio amp, dude.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I have the emulated one. I have the digital version, a plugin. Got it from Universal Audio. I have a lot of their plugins, and they have that
With the
line.
Flintstone.
I believe so. I don't know if it's the actual one, but I have it on the Universal Audio. So Lion, I don't know the actual
Y'all get a
number on it, but
room, man.
it's an
Shit.
emulated one.
Hey, good.
Awesome.
Hillary, I have a question.
Okay.
It's a presuppositional question posed for the benefit of JG. Okay, here it is. Hillary, is morality subjectively conceived?
Yes.
Okay, is some morality subjectively conceived?
Because all morality is subjectively
Okay,
conceived.
so it would be
That
yes.
includes
Hang with
some.
me.
Yes. Okay.
Hang with me.
Okay. Yes.
Yes. Uh, um, hold for processing. Is any morality objectively perceived?
No.
Oh.
Dude, it's all about the subject-object relationship with these fucking people, dude.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's roll down this road. Is any evil objectively perceived?
No. As soon as you say object, it can't be perceived. And this is basic grammar.
Okay. Is anything objectively perceived?
No, by
Okay,
definition, no.
okay. I understand the logic you're proposing. Gotcha. It's subjective because of the limitations of the human mind.
No, it's subjective because grammatically a subject is the only one who can do the action. An object does not perform the action.
Okay.
So it's basic understanding of what subjective and objective mean. You can't objectively perceive anything. You can act on an object, but a subject has to act on the object.
Is morality objective?
No,
Why are these pre-suppers so insistent that it is?
because they don't understand English.
They
The
don't, dude.
rhetoric, the rationale, they don't understand the rationale, the English rationale that you're employing?
Perhaps not.
Or, well, is it? They understand English, they speak English, but
What
are
I
you,
think it is I think they take themselves out of the equation. Like, how do I say this? If you're not aware of
uh-huh.
if the subject-object relationship is confusing to you, and you don't understand what a subject, like, you don't know that about yourself. Like that's what these people like. They don't understand that. They think that they're objective. They think that because it's a book means it's objective, and they don't understand that we are all giving a subjective view. They just don't understand it, dude. Because narcissism.
Well, I'd say that it is juvenile and it is in some ways egocentric or narcissistic. But is it I see it more as
Let me
a
ask you this
condition of
question.
youth, youth, a youthful mind, the condition of a youthful mind. Yeah, but anyway,
I
rather
don't think
than,
it's
yeah, go ahead.
I don't think it's youth. I think is a condition of the diseased mind.
Well, all
Because would it
minds
make
are
any
diseased, Hillary. That's no out. All minds, even yours, right?
yes.
Okay, thought so.
But if we were to say that this pen is objectively moral because it, without any consciousness, has decided. Now, do you see the contradiction there? The pen has decided
Okay,
without
well,
any
that's
consciousness that it is
a
objectively moral.
structural flaw. That's a structural flaw in
Yes.
the rationale.
And
Okay,
that's
but
and
that's
that's their
still
that's their total underpinning. Their total underpinning is the structure. And when you begin with the faulty foundation, the entire structure crumbles.
well. that being said, and that being, let's say, true, it still it stalls some other truthful consideration about whatever this thing is, presuppositional apologetics and objective morality. It stalls consideration. So I don't want to stall at that point
Ah,
to say, oh, well, that one fundamental boo boo right there at the big start end
but that's the
makes,
whole thing, though. Their whole case
well,
is predicated upon that first initial presumption that exists without observation. And because of that, that's where you have to attack it, is right at the beginning, because that's their linchpin for their whole argument. So you can't grant them anything.
okay. How about this? Do you believe in evil?
I believe in preference statements.
Is that a yes or a no?
I believe that evil is a preference statement.
Uh huh. That's you can't go there, can you?
No.
Hmm. Don't you traffic in childishly evil knowledge claims?
No, I do not.
Why not?
Because I am the judge of righteousness, so I can only judge righteousness. If evil presents itself to me, I can't even understand it. It is so different from my nature.
Are you allowed not to care?
Mm, That's a very deep question, and it would take me a while to unpack it. I am allowed not to care, but I may or may not choose not to care.
Are you a Calvinist, dude? Because then you don't have to.
Yeah, yeah, just be.
Predestination. The Calvitards, they ain't got nothing on. Never mind. Never mind.
Yeah, JG embraces evil, and that is his shtick. He
What?
embraces evil. He embraces condemnation, including self condemnation. He
He
doesn't realize that his own arguments are self defeating and he is condemning himself.
Well, sir, are you saying that JG is embracing the ministry of death,
I am.
the law, a
I
ministry of
am.
death? And he can call it, he can put like, you can, you know how you can put perfume on a pig and,
Right?
it's still a pig. But uh, he's garnishing the law up with things like objective morality and right wrongism. Legalism, good old fashioned
I
legalism.
don't think I had ever gone up to a grown man and said, "You're a naughty boy, bad boy." I I'd never done that, dude, ever in my life.
Professionally, I have done that thousands of times. But
Well,
Oh,
again,
I'm
that
just
was a
strictly
condition.
talking. I'm strictly talking sexual gratification here. Right, that's it.
I'm
Okay.
aghast at some of the tricky questions, sexual questions some of these presuppers ask. It's astonishing. It's astonishing. It's like, why would you construct such an inquiry?
Yeah, now that I understand Lyric's point, I agree with him. I have never condemned someone for any personal failing.
No, that's not saying that I don't care about a brother and I'm not
Conspiratory.
willing to say something to that person to help them. But I mean, a random stranger on the street or on the internet that tickles my fancy, gets me all riled up because I'm worried about something, right? I don't go to that guy. My experience has told me that the reason why I feel like that is because I suffer from that as well. So it behooves me to not put my shit on that person, right? And that's what my experience has taught me, that when I do that, bad things happen in my life. So I don't point it out. It's me. It's me.
JG, I know you're probably getting a lot out of this, but you're officially
Great. Then let's look at your worldview, look at my worldview. On your worldview, even given your assumptions, you can't give reasons. You're defeated on your own terms. By the way, you're also defeated from the authoritative standpoint that I might have as a Christian, saying God says that you're wrong. But you too have to say that you're wrong, given your own assumptions. But if you stand in my worldview, I can save rationality, science, whatever you've been arguing. And Vansel says, once we've done that, there's really nothing else to do. I mean, when somebody brings up a particular objection, there's research you might want to do about that to help them, feel more comfortable about the truth of Christianity. But from an apologetical standpoint, what he's essentially done is taken the weapon away from the unbeliever, saying, you want to argue with us? You haven't got any weapons. Because your method of arguing undermines arguing. And so you can't play this game.
Like what he says about complete self-contradiction is possible only in hell.
Well, even there it's not. It would be hell if it was complete. But in hell, men will still be made in the image of God. Okay, so that's my first short reading in this filet mignon, back to the basics of transcendental presuppositional apologetics. The other one comes from the defense of the faith. Somebody who has the formula can figure out the pages. That'd be wonderful. I'm going to be on pages 116 to 120, and then page 135. For pages 116 to 120, subtract 17, according to our formula.
Yeah, 199. Oh, okay. Yeah, 99.
So if I'm on 116, you're on 99? Okay. Reasoning by presupposition. Did it work? Oh, I love it when a thing comes together like this. These things being as they are, it will be our first task in this chapter to show that a consistently Christian method of apologetic argument, in agreement with its own basic conception of the starting point, must be by presupposition. To argue by presupposition is to indicate what are the epistemological and metaphysical principles that underlie and control one's method. That's a very important sentence. To reason by presupposition, you've got to lay out your metaphysic and epistemology, and you've got to make sure the unbeliever understands his metaphysic and epistemology. The Reformed apologist will frankly admit that his own methodology presupposes the truth of Christian theism. Basic to all the doctrines of Christian theism is that of the self-contained God, or if we wish, that of the ontological Trinity. It is this notion of the ontological Trinity that ultimately controls a truly Christian methodology. Our metaphysical view controls our method, our epistemology. Based upon this notion of the ontological Trinity and consistent with it is the concept of the counsel of God, according to which all things in the created world are regulated. So we begin with God, the triune, God who is self-sufficient, God the creator, God the sovereign controller of all things. Christian methodology is therefore based upon presuppositions that are quite the opposite of those of the non-Christian. It is claimed to be of the very essence of any non-Christian form of methodology that it cannot be determined in advance to what conclusions it must lead. It's neutral. We just go out there and let the facts speak for themselves, right? To assert, as the Christian apologist is bound to do, if he is not to deny the very thing he is seeking to establish, that the conclusion of a true method is the truth of Christian theism, is from the point of view of the non-Christian the clearest evidence of authoritarianism. In spite of this claim to neutrality on the part of the non-Christian, the Reformed apologist must point out that every method, the supposedly neutral one, no less than any other, presupposes either the truth or falsity of Christian theism. You might want to make a mental note, or in your actual written notes here. Van Til is offering now a bivalent structure for argument. He says every method assumes the truth of Christian theism or that it's not true. Ultimately, there's only two. Why am I pointing this out? I might as well cash in on it now. Because people are always going to say, well, Van Til, you've only refuted worldviews 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. What about worldviews 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Van Til's point is there's only two worldviews. Or to put it better, every worldview either assumes the truth of Christianity or assumes that it's not true. The objection immediately is, no, it doesn't. There are some that are neutral, that are non-committal. Now, who's right, who's wrong here? Van Til is going to quote Jesus, right? He who is not with me is against me. That's the interesting thing about this worldview. You don't get to sit on the fence about it. You either affirm it or you deny it. Now, you may be polite in your denying it. You might even say, I'm glad to talk about this. It might possibly be true. But to say it might possibly be true is, from Van Til's standpoint, to say it's not actually true, and so you're denying it. Given this, now, if he's wrong about this, you might have to do some reconstruction of the presuppositional approach. But you have to understand, Van Til doesn't believe we've got a zillion worldviews out there. Let's get busy, because by the time we die, we've got to refute each one of them. It's not an inductive process of knocking down this one, then this one, this one. Van Til says all of them either assume Christianity is true or it's not. Now, if they assume that it's true, we're done, obviously. But the point is, the reason we're arguing is because they assume Christianity is not true. So they're in that worldview that denies Christianity. Yes. Yeah, this is Van Til's law of excluded middle. On worldviews, it's either Christian or it's not Christian. Somebody says, yeah, but look at all the differences between existentialists and rationalists, and nihilists, and on and on and on. All these different worldviews that are out there. Van Til says, they're all brothers under the skin. For our purposes, they really all have the same worldview, and then they argue over details. Now, that makes sense. By analogy, there are a lot of Christians, right? We're all brothers under the skin, spiritually speaking, but then we differ on details. Some of us believe in infant baptism, some of us don't. And that isn't to say it's relative and the Bible's not clear on it, but we're all Christians in terms of our worldview. And so there are non-Christians who disagree with each other on details. But the point is, you're either Christian or you're not Christian when it comes to your worldview. Every method, even the supposedly neutral one, presupposes either the truth or the falsity of Christian theism. He excludes any middle ground. The method of reasoning by presupposition may be said to be indirect rather than direct. There's only two values, Christianity or not Christianity. Now, I'm going to use an indirect method. I'm going to refute non-Christianity. If you know anything about logic, okay, it's like a disjunctive syllogism, A or B, not B, therefore A. The method of reasoning by presupposition may be said to be indirect rather than direct. The issue between believers and non-believers in Christian theism cannot be settled by a direct appeal to facts or laws whose nature and significance is already agreed upon by both parties to the debate. And here is the crucial sentence. The question is rather as to what is the final reference point required to make the facts and laws intelligible. We can't directly go to the facts and say, that proves Christianity. And nor can the unbeliever go directly to the facts and say, that disproves Christianity. Van Til says the question is rather, whose reference point can make the facts or the laws intelligible? The question is as to what the facts and laws really are. Are they what the non-Christian methodology assumes that they are? He doesn't mean here what are the specific facts of history, but what is a fact? What's the nature of a fact? Is it a random event in a chance universe? Are they what the non-Christian methodology assumes that they are? Are they what the Christian theistic methodology presupposes they are? When people say, let's just go to the facts to settle this, we have to say, well, but what do you think a fact is? What do I think a fact is? If you think a fact is just some kind of random event in a chance universe, then we can't go to the facts to settle anything. Facts don't settle anything because they're random. It's a chance universe. So when you say, let's go to the facts to settle something, you must be thinking of facts as a Christian thinks of facts in order that you can use them to argue against the Christian view. It's not just they have no stability, they have no... Yeah, he's assuming they have a stability, but he's assuming that they have identifiability as well, that they're individuated from one another. The answer to this question cannot be finally settled by any direct discussion of facts. It must, in the last analysis, be settled indirectly. The Christian apologist must place himself upon the position of his opponent, assuming the correctness of his method merely for argument's sake, in order to show him that on such a position the facts are not facts and the laws are not laws. Okay, so I say, okay, you've got your worldview. Let me reason with you in terms of your worldview. I'm going to stand within your framework of thought. And guess what? Within that framework of thought, there are no laws, there are no facts. Why are there no laws? Just so we don't run over this too quickly. Well, in a chance universe, there can't be any necessity to anything. In a chance universe, things can change. So there's no invariance. In a chance universe, there couldn't be anything necessary and invariant, so there couldn't be anything law-like. How come there are no facts? In a chance universe, you can't individuate one thing from another. Everything's sound and fury signifying nothing. Everything's random, everything's the same, and everything is different. Everything's so different that you never can say there's a similarity between two things. You couldn't even identify that as a barn over there because that assumes there's some continuing idea of barrenness. But in a chance universe, there's just experience, 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 and you can't give any kind of unity to it. So there are no facts and there are no laws.
In reality, talking about in a chance universe, there really wouldn't even be experience.
That's right.
Because there's not the experience.
In a chance universe, when I say there's experience, 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 what have I done? Minimally, I've said there's 1, 2, 3 things. That's right. I've individuated them. In a chance universe, for all I know, there's not 3 experiences. There's just 1 experience. And it has what we call 3 as components. But you can't call them components because that assumes there's an order in terms of which you can see a structure. When you get hold of this, excuse me just a second, when you get hold of this argument, you see how powerful it is? Van Til is able to destroy, I mean, out of kindness, we don't act mean or harsh to people, but we can utterly destroy the unbeliever. Take his worldview and just say, on your worldview, you couldn't argue at all.
Yeah, that's what's over and over again. This paragraph right here in the middle of 100, where he says the reference point, without that, you can't make intelligible any fact. Well, Sartre he's famous for saying, without the finite reference point or the infinite reference point, all the finite points are absurd. They don't have any. So he's recognizing that and then making his own conclusion about that. But he's trying to be consistent with that.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Sartre's good that way. He admits all these other schools of philosophy are a bunch of lawyers, basically. They're just, they're paid to try to come up with answers. They're trying to defend a guilty client, and no one's going to be able to. Everything's absurd, Sartre says. That's my beginning point. Everything's absurd. Now, what are we going to do since everything's absurd? And I don't believe Sartre can live fully consistently because in the end, to give you one example, Sartre says, in an absurd universe, no one has authority over you. So no one can tell you how to live your life. You be authentic. You be free. So Sartre says, I order you to take no orders from anybody. Okay, continuing the reading, we must also ask the non-Christian to place himself upon the Christian position for argument's sake, in order that he may be shown that only upon such a basis do facts and laws appear intelligible. Say, now if you stand within the framework of Christian presuppositions, not only do you see that facts and laws are intelligible, but within this framework, it's the only one where they could be intelligible. This, too, is anticipating an argument that many people bring up. They'll say, well, you presuppositionalists have shown a sufficient condition for intelligibility, but you haven't shown that it's necessary. Van Til answers it here. He says, well, within our framework, it's necessary. Somebody says, okay, but maybe your framework's not the right one. Van Til says, fine. What's the alternative? Absurdity. But that's fine. Your choices are between Christianity and absurdity. But don't suggest that within the Christian framework, which makes sense of things, you can continue arguing and then argue there might be another framework that can do it just as well. Within the Christian framework, there's one and only one that can do it. Now, you might make that the basis for rejecting Christianity. So, well, I don't think you've really shown that. I don't think you can show that. Van Til would say, fine. Then where are you standing when you're making this criticism of my worldview? You're either standing in my worldview and another one. I'd like you to tell me about that worldview. Of course, we've already done this dance, right? And it doesn't work. To admit one's own presuppositions and to point out the presuppositions of others is therefore to maintain that all reasoning is in the nature of the case circular reasoning. He means you're reasoning about your ultimate presuppositions. The starting point, the method, and the conclusion are always involved in one another. Let us say that the Christian apologist has placed the position of Christian theism before his opponent. Let us say further that he has pointed out that his own method of investigation of reality presupposes the truth of his position. This will appear to his friend, whom he is seeking to win to an acceptance of the Christian position, as highly authoritarian and out of accord with the proper use of human reason. What will the apologist do next? If he is a Roman Catholic or an Arminian, he will tone down the nature of Christianity to some extent in order to make it appear that the consistent application of his friend's neutral method will lead to an acceptance of Christian theism after all. That is, we don't want to seem authoritarian, so we'll accept what you call a neutral method and try to satisfy you that your neutral, allegedly neutral method, your pretended neutral method will actually lead to Christianity. But if he's a Calvinist, this way is not open to him. He will point out that the more consistently his friend applies his supposedly neutral method, the more certainly he will come to the conclusion that Christian theism is not true. Let me take the argument for the resurrection of Christ just to show you. If I allow the unbeliever to reason in terms of his worldview, which he pretends is neutral, and then I present all these facts to show that Jesus very probably rose from the dead, if he accepts that conclusion within that worldview, he will have to conclude most certainly that Christianity is not true. Why is that? Well, because within his worldview, if Jesus rose from the dead, it's because there's some very odd principles that operate in the biological realm that we haven't discovered yet. On his principles, that's what it would have to be. He cannot accept that Jesus rose from the dead and then say it's a miracle. Given his neutral method, he has to say, well, we're not allowed to bring the supernatural in here. We have to say that's a natural event. This allegedly neutral approach, of course, is not neutral. That's Van Til's point. You let him get away with using his method will destroy your worldview. Even when it appears he's agreeing with points of your worldview, he will in fact have naturalized them and cut them down to size. If you allow him to use his neutral method, where he is the center of authority for what he believes and so forth, will he ever, if he's consistent with that, say, God's the center of authority for what I believe? See, God comes to him and says, I declare what you can believe, what you must believe. It's not up to you. And who are you to talk back to God? Let God be true, though all men are liars. But you can never get to that conclusion if you begin with the idea of a neutral method where man is the ultimate authority over what he believes. So Van Til says, if you allow the unbeliever to continue with his pretended neutrality, you're just going to reinforce his rejection of Christianity. What looks like an acceptance of points of the Christian system is in fact the destruction of those very points that have been received.
I wonder if that's not really true, but they wouldn't do that. But philosophical atheist Kai Nielsen actually said that very thing. So it's almost like he took that right from Van Til. J.P. Morgan presented him with the classic historical arguments for resurrection, and he said, I grant it's all true. What's that prove? It doesn't prove anything. It just simply proves something bizarre happened. We don't know the answer yet. I couldn't believe he said it, but he simply turned the whole argument right back on Moreland, and I don't think that no one had a good response to that.
Yeah.
UCLA professor of physics saying the same thing.
Well, yeah, I've been told that, and I don't know his name, and I can't give you the context, and so I feel a little uneasy now using that illustration. When someone said, what are the details? I said, well, I've been told that this guy, this physics professor, once said in class. He said, well, sure, you can say that historically Jesus rose from the dead. Now we're looking for an explanation of it.
But don't like immoral to use a strictly evidential approach?
I think it's immoral to encourage people to sin. I think the evidential approach, in its neutralist understanding, encourages people to try to be the ultimate authority. I believe that's sinful, and so indirectly I have to say that that is, in fact, an immoral approach. It's not immoral in the same way that the guy who goes to a prostitute says, I'm just going to now live licentiously. But it's immoral in that it's encouraging people to live contrary to faith in God by saying, first assume faith in yourself so that you might come to faith in God.
Love yourself first.
Yes, if you just love yourself enough, you'll have to end up loving God. If you just respect yourself enough, you'll have to end up respecting God. All right, toward the bottom of page 118, Van Til talks about appealing to the knowledge of the true method which the natural man knows but suppresses. Notice he says true method here. He's not just appealing to the knowledge of the true God or the truth about God and creation, but he says the natural man knows what the true method of thinking is, but he suppresses it. He knows that he should give glory to God and submit to his authority, but he suppresses it. The natural man at bottom knows that he is the creature of God. He knows also that he's responsible to God. He knows that he should live to the glory of God. He knows that in all that he does, he should stress that the field of reality which he investigates has the stamp of God's ownership upon it. But he suppresses his knowledge of himself as he truly is. He is the man with the iron mask. A true method of apologetics must seek to tear off that iron mask. Van Til had great illustrations. Here's this guy who's got this iron mask, you know. My job as an apologist is not to flatter the mask and say, you know, I think I can show in terms of the principles of your iron mask that there's really a face behind that iron mask. Van Til says, we need to tear that mask off. Stop pretending to be autonomous. You're not. The Roman Catholic and the Arminian make no attempt to do so. They even flatter the wearer about his fine appearance. Van Til's being very kind here. You know, this is a very strong indictment. Because natural theology, the Roman Catholic approach, and even Arminian evidential apologetics, they'll flatter you know, you're really doing very well when it comes to natural reasoning. You're very good as a historian. You're very good as a scientist. Van Til would say, you couldn't do anything that you're doing if you didn't already depend upon the God that you use your science and history to argue against. Anyway, they flatter his fine appearance. In the introductions of their books on apologetics, Arminian as well as Roman Catholic apologists frequently seek to set their opponents at ease by assuring them that their method in its field is all that any Christian could desire. Don't get nervous. All I want you to do is apply the same method that you apply in that field that you're familiar with. You know, if you're a biologist or an astronomer or a physicist, psychologist, whatever. I'll accept your method. I know you mean very well. You're doing very well. It's very, very fine. I flatter your neutrality. In contradistinction from this, the Reformed apologists will point out again and again that the only method that will lead to the truth in any field is that method which recognizes the fact that man is a creature of God, that he must therefore seek to think God's thoughts after him. It is not as though the Reformed apologist should not interest himself in the nature of the non-Christian's method. On the contrary, he should make a critical analysis of it. He should, as it were, join his friend in the use of it, but he should do so self-consciously with the purpose of showing that its most consistent application not merely leads away from Christian theism, but in leading away from Christian theism leads to the destruction of reason and science as well. That's one of the most important sentences in all of Van Til's writings. At least it was in my learning of the system. You know, then the coin drops and you say, oh yeah. What I want to show him is that if you're consistent, you can't possibly be a Christian. But if you're consistent, you can't use logic and science either. In leading away from Christianity, you lead away from the intelligibility of everything. An illustration may indicate more clearly what is meant. Suppose we think of a man made of water in an infinitely extended and bottomless ocean of water. Desiring to get out of the water, he makes a ladder of water. He sets his ladder up upon the water and against the water, and then attempts to climb out of the water. So hopeless and senseless a picture must be drawn of the natural man's methodology, based as it is upon the assumption that time or chance is ultimate. One of the easiest illustrations, at least for me, of this man of water is, C.S. Lewis uses this as well. If the unbeliever is right that all we have is matter in motion, so that physics explains everything, then the real question is, I'm nothing more than just matter in motion, just like the rock is matter in motion. How then do I ever, as matter in motion, get to the point where I think of myself as matter in motion? Rocks don't think of themselves. How can self-consciousness be explained as matter in motion? That's devastating. Mantle says, on the unbeliever's position, everything's the same. Everything's water. Everything's chance. Everything has these material characteristics. Well, but then how do you take water and make a ladder that you can put against the water so that the man who is made out of the same stuff, water, can climb on the ladder of water out of the water? How do you rise above matter in motion to now be an intellect who can talk about matter in motion? Because you're nothing but matter in motion. The non-Christian position destroys itself. On his assumption, his own rationality is a product of chance. On his assumption, even the laws of logic which he employs are products of chance. The rationality and purpose that he may be searching for are still bound to be products of chance. So then the Christian apologist, whose position requires him to hold that Christian theism is really true and as such must be taken as the presupposition which alone makes the acquisition of knowledge in any field intelligible, must join his friend in his hopeless gyrations so as to point out to him that his efforts are always in vain. It will then appear that Christian theism, which was first rejected because of its supposed authoritarian character, is the only position which gives human reason a field for successful operation and a method of true progress in knowledge. My math may be off, but I think I've only read for you 8 pages out of 2 books. It's all there, isn't it? I think this is brilliant. It can be improved on. The expression of it might be cleaned up. But you know what? While I'm improving on Van Til's Christian presuppositionalism, I'm still being a Christian presuppositionalist, aren't I? Okay, what questions would you like to ask before I begin to go over the objections that people have raised against Van Til's apologetic? Mark.
Didn't you say you were going to throw away that a child or someone brings?
That's what I'm going to end with today, if all goes well. The last objection is going to be, well, this is all too complicated, it's too philosophical, and I'm going to try to... Now, don't be like that. That wasn't directed at anybody in our class. Lots of people read Van Til, and they have trouble understanding him because he doesn't write all that well. But once they understand it, they say, well, but what good is that? How many Christians can, use Kantian transcendental analysis and so forth? And so what I want to point out is that the same program is executable at a lower level, even by children. And hopefully that's where we'll end up. Okay, other questions about the summary of the transcendental use, the presuppositional use of transcendental analysis?
I like the analogy you used before, where the unbeliever trying to disprove the existence of air is all the while reading it.
Yeah. And it turns out I took that from Van Til. I actually had forgotten that I'd read that, but I run across it in writing this book on him again. A man may argue and sound very intelligent against the existence of air. The strange thing is, all the while he argues against the existence of air, he's breathing while he's doing his talking and arguing. And that picture, I think, is a good picture of the unbeliever and all of what he's doing. He's arguing against the Christian worldview, to be sure. And he may sound very brilliant at points. He may be very clever at points. And yet, in order to argue at all, he has to be assuming the Christian worldview to argue against it. As Paul said, in him we live and move and have our being.
What about the question that was asked the last 2 days about how extensive a Christian worldview? I mean, you have, I think the way Rich worded it, you have to be a post-millennialist to present a proper worldview to use a transcendental argument.
Okay, in order to use the transcendental argument most effectively, you must believe in infant baptism. Why is that? Well, as I approach it, because I think the Bible teaches infant baptism, right? So, if the truer we are to the source, to the foundation from which everything else makes sense, then the better will be our defense of the faith. So I want to say, when somebody says, well, do you have to believe in infant baptism to be a good presuppositionalist? I have to say, well, to be the best presuppositionalist you do, because I believe that's what the Bible teaches. But then I would also say, no, you don't. Because the illustration I used the other day is, in football, the guy who scores the touchdown is separate from the other players, isn't he? Not everybody carries the ball, into the end zone. But if we think that there aren't secondary players that he needs for the whole team to operate, then we don't understand how football is played. So the elements of the Christian worldview that are going to be the frontline ball carriers in most arguments are going to be things having to do with the ontological Trinity, God's foreordination, Christ being the incarnation of God, his death on the cross being for the redemption of men, the need of the Holy Spirit's regeneration for thinking, these sorts of elements. But then when I just said regeneration, there are different evangelical doctrines of regeneration. And so the better use of an appeal to regeneration would be one that sees it in its purest biblical light. And the same would be true in terms of covenant, what we do in response to God's covenant. Do we raise our children acknowledging that all things belong to God? So forth and so on. Now, I don't want to make you Baptists feel uncomfortable, but presuppositionalism presses also for a covenant consciousness that demands that everything that we do recognize the authority of God, and that means the way we raise our children. And we recognize the antithesis between those who are God's people and those who are not God's people. So our children are distinguished from the world and are raised to think all their thoughts after God. That isn't because we control their hearts. They may grow up to be rebellious. Sadly, I have a child that has not lived, faithfully and has been excommunicated. That breaks my heart. But I still raise my child as one who is to understand that she belongs to God, she is to think his thoughts after him, and so forth. And that's why she was set apart by God in baptism. We see that infant baptism ties in then with covenant consciousness, which ties in with the sovereignty of God and ties in with this Christian worldview that's defended, in that way. Please don't feel bad if you don't agree with infant baptism. I'm just trying to illustrate that though I don't argue infant baptism with the unbeliever, back there a ways, that's still part of my team. I didn't score this touchdown without that, implicitly being part of the system. Now, we may all get together on the team and say, now, do we want this person to be the guard or not? And we may think we can improve on our effort. We've scored a lot of touchdowns as a football team, but maybe we ought to get rid of infant baptism and put this other one into place. But we're still, as a football team, deciding how we operate as a football team. So it's kind of like a broad focus and a narrow focus, as I see it. The narrow focus is what does the work in apologetics, but it always assumes that broader focus, and that broader focus can be refined and can be made more precise.
Doesn't Dr. Van Hill use an analogy of the military, the big guns, the apologist being the errand boy between systematic theology and other fields of study?
Yeah.
The point is, and see that we're defending the whole system we call Christianity. Again, not the blockhouse method, not just these 10 things, but it's the whole package that makes up our worldview.
Right.
Totally comprehensive.
Right. Now, is it destructive for us to admit to the unbeliever that because we are finite creatures of God, we admit that even as Christians, we are growing in our precision of understanding of what God has told us? In one sense, that's advantageous. Not because we have a cop-out later if there's something wrong in what we said. It's advantageous because we want to tell the unbeliever the only transcendental, the only final authority is God. And therefore, the fact that we don't have this infallibility of interpretation and we have to work on refining the details is just an indication that it's not our authority that we're standing on, but on God's. But we couldn't even refine our Christian theology if we didn't already know transcendentally that it was true. Van Til's image, and again, we use metaphors, how valuable is that? You decide. But I like this. I think it gets the point across. Van Til says, if you're trying to go across a swollen river where the bridge is under 8 inches of water, you got to get your car to the other side. Granted, as you go across that bridge, you're being real careful, aren't you? Because you can't see the surface of the bridge. There's 8 inches of water there. So you get to the other side. Well, take the situation somebody says, well, since you can't see the surface of the bridge, you don't know exactly what the bridge looks like and where it is. You might as well ford the river anywhere. Well, that doesn't make any sense, does it? Van Til says, granted, we don't see all the details. We're still working on textual criticism and things of that nature. But it makes all the difference in the world epistemologically that there's a bridge under us when we try to cross than that we are the man of water made of water with a ladder of water. Okay? You don't try to cross that bridge, don't try to cross that river without a bridge. So we've got a bridge, but we are finite and imperfect, and we're still working on seeing it more perfectly.
And, it's just, worldview. God's revelation.
It is not inconsistent in the Christian worldview that we are working on our theology progressively. That's right. That doesn't contradict. In fact, it fits into what we know about the nature of man. When will we know even as we are known, after all? Not in this life. Not until later. Okay, 5-minute break.
This recording has been released into the public domain by the Bahnsen Institute. Duplication, sharing, and distribution is encouraged. For more information about the life and ministry of Dr. Greg L. Bahnsen, visit our website, bahnseninstitute.com, where we aim to bring into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. This recording has been released into the public domain by the Bahnsen Institute, where we aim to bring into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ.
I had given an extended illustration of how every event or everything is evidence for God's existence. And I said the flower growing in the garden is evidence for God's existence. And what do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different ways in which the flower growing in the garden is evidence for God's existence over against atheism. And I'm just going to read what I had put down here in the book for you. Atheism cannot explain the origin of the flower growing in the garden in the sense that it can't make sense out of the materials of which the flower is made. Where did they come from? How do they get here? How does the Big Bang, how do we get to dirt and to chloroform and all the other sorts of things? We can't really explain the origin of the flower. Atheism cannot explain its history and development. Okay, so it can't explain matter and its characteristics. Now it can't explain induction, history and development of the flower. Thirdly, atheism cannot explain its conceptual relations. That is the logic that we use when we talk about the flower and what it is to have a universal of flower or a universal of dirtness or whatever it may be. Because atheism can't explain universals. Atheism cannot explain matter and its origin. It can't explain induction. It can't explain logic. It can't explain universals. Fourthly, atheism cannot explain the value judgments we have about the flower. It can't explain aesthetics or ethical values as to what we're supposed to do about the flower. As a Christian, I say the beauty of that flower puts me under moral obligation to praise the God who made it. Atheists can't explain it. Somebody else might say, that flower is such that I can stomp on it. You say, well, whatever ethical system you have, the point is you can't explain ethics at all if you're an atheist. Next, atheism cannot explain its adaptation to the environment or the flower's adaptation to our purposes. That is, how is it the flower works in a certain ecological system? Why is there any relationship of anything to anything else in the natural world? And even tougher, why is there any way in, how is it possible that things outside of me can be made suitable to my purposes? Atheism cannot explain why explanation is called for or surmount skepticism regarding what we know about the flower. That is, atheism not only fails to explain the flower, it fails to explain explanation. Atheism cannot overcome skepticism. And then finally, I put down atheism cannot explain our consciousness of the flower. How is it if I'm made of the same stuff the flower is, that I'm conscious of the flower, but the flower is not conscious of me? How does self-consciousness get explained in terms of matter and motion? So that was just an illustration I used, was it last year we did this? That I used in the seminar last year to show the explanatory power of theism, Christian theism, over against atheism, because Michael Martin had said that the atheistic worldview had greater explanatory power. And I said, it doesn't explain anything. So what kind of explanatory power is that?
That's the only time I've ever heard that saying of Van Til. When he says every fact. And boy, that's about as mundane a fact as you can get. And so if you could do with that fact, you can do with any fact.
Thanks a lot. Okay. There's got to be something wrong with this system, right? That's what people will tell you. I'm going to break up the arguments into two categories. The first one I'm going to hurry through, and the second one will take some time till the end of our seminar. The first group of criticisms is directed at Van Til's apologetic in general, and generally what they show is a lack of comprehension that it's a transcendental program. That if these criticisms, if the people making these criticisms had realized what you realize about the nature of Van Til's argument, these criticisms should never have been given at all. Then the second category of criticisms will be those who do understand that it's transcendental and try to criticize it anyway. First of all, Van Til has been repeatedly criticized by people who say this is fideism. There is no rational argumentation possible, according to Van Til. Everybody simply has their faith commitment, and beyond that, there's no argument. Well, if you understand the transcendental character of this program, that's absolutely absurd. Far from being fideist, Van Til's saying is we're going to argue and argue from any fact for the Christian worldview as the only possible truth in terms of which people can make sense out of experience. That's not fideism. It's the exact opposite of fideism. In the same vein, people will say Van Til's approach reduces to the view that there's no argument between final authorities. It's like, you've got your final authority, I have my final authority, and since we don't agree on final authorities, we can't argue with each other. I actually had a well-known, popular evangelical evidentialist apologist sitting next to me on an airplane once who told me that's what Van Til's position was. Talk about morally and socially awkward situation to be in. Now, how do I politely say that is absolute garbage? And you had better read about this before you go about telling people that. But I mean, he gives public lectures in which, if he's asked, that's how he dismisses, at least at that point. I hope he doesn't now. But it's like, well, you got your final authority, you have your presupposition, I have mine, we can't argue. Van Til says we have to argue. Well, how can you argue if there are different ultimate presuppositions? What's the answer? Transcendentally. We have to ask which provides the preconditions for the intelligibility of any argument. Okay, yes, sir?
One thing about the that I find usually is R.C. Sproul in his book charges presuppositionalism with deism. And he ought to know better. I mean, at least he's too many. He's got the book footnotes all over the place. So he has to know that Mansfield does not claim to be theistic. I mean, it ends up as a theism.
Right.
So that might be the case. I mean, it might be that the apologetics doesn't really work and that we're left with the actual standoff. But fideism is the view that you claim that you have no basis for your worldview or your position.
Right.
You get confused. I mean, if fideism is just that starting point, if somebody claims to have a rational grounding to his faith, and that comes out and his argument is terrible, he's still not a fideist, and he believes, he thinks he has a reason.
He's just not a very effective rationalist. Right. He's making the effort to provide rational foundations for the faith, but he's not doing it well. That's different from fideism, which says we shouldn't be trying to do that at all. Thank you. Okay, the second criticism of Van Til that we run into in the literature is that given his view of analogical knowledge and God's incomprehensibility, Christians shouldn't use logic. Logic is not authoritative for Christians. Well, I mean, in my book that I'm writing on Van Til, I quote him over and over and over again to the exact opposite effect. So how can we make sense of somebody thinking Van Til rejects logic when in fact he affirms logic? What is it that Van Til is saying that might give that impression? Van Til saying that logic is not the ultimate authority. Jehovah, the Christian worldview, is the ultimate authority in terms of which logic is now intelligible. Does that mean logic's not required? No, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means that logic is subordinate to something else. That logic's subordinate to the authority of God. And then people will say, oh, well then God could change the laws of logic, right? You say, well, not the Christian God. Christian God doesn't deny himself, and the laws of logic are based on his character, so you don't have to worry about that. But the point is you can't exalt logic above God in authority if you're a transcendentalist. Van Til had the good sense as a philosopher to recognize that logic, the truth of logic, is unchanging, but our discovering truths about logic is a changing science. It's a growing science. There's a science of logic which tries to be logical. In the same way, the laws of morality don't change. But our understanding of the laws of morality gets better and better. We do develop ethical systems, after all. Is that to say, well, everything's relative because you believe that ethics is developing? No, it just means that what? We're getting a sharper focus on the truth. Third argument that I'm just going to briefly deal with, although this is, it deserves maybe a whole seminar because it happens over and over and over and over and over again. It depresses me. In fact, I hardly want to go on now. I'm so depressed just thinking about it. How many times have I been told, I can't be a presuppositionalist, I can't follow Van Til because he rejects evidences? Why would somebody think Van Til rejects evidences, apart from just bad scholarship, not reading? What little might they run into in Van Til that it's not right, but gives them the idea that he's not in favor of evidences? Right. Van Til says, if you think you can just go to the evidences in a naive, neutral way, then you got a real lesson coming to you. It doesn't work. It shouldn't work. To the degree that it works, it reinforces autonomy and therefore is not great. Now, does this mean that God never uses an impure apologetical witness to bring people to conversion? Of course not. Van Til doesn't think that his arguments are always the best formulated. God uses imperfect people. God uses people who even conceive of arguments in ways that are not all that faithful. You know what? This is going to shock you, but as a Calvinist, I believe that God even uses heretics to lead people to faith, genuine faith in Jesus Christ. Not often, that's not the normal way. But you know, when somebody stands in the pulpit who does not believe that the Bible is the Word of God and Jesus is really divine and so forth, nevertheless reads some verses of Scripture and says some things about them, a person might in the audience hear that and say, he's my only hope. And I don't know how it all works, but I'm going to throw myself on him and say, God, please save me for the sake of Jesus. Now, the heretic didn't want that, but I believe God can strike a straight blow with a crooked stick. And so Van Til's not saying, I'm not saying that evidential apologists, as bad as the arguments may be, never accomplish anything. God accomplishes his will even through bad, imperfect instruments. But from the academic standpoint, in which what we're studying in apologetics is arguments, their validity, and so forth, Van Til says if you grant autonomy to the unbeliever, your evidences are going to be destroyed. We've already used the resurrection example so many times that I can be quick with it, right? I proved to the unbeliever that a cadaver resuscitated. He says, oh, okay, I believe that. I said, good, then you're ready to become a Christian. We'll have you baptized next Sunday. He goes, oh, I'm not going to become a Christian. All I granted is that a cadaver resuscitated. That has nothing to do with this being the incarnate Son of God who was raised by his heavenly Father for the sins of men so that we are now justified and he intercedes on our behalf and we can come to God through him. I don't believe any of that stuff. I just believe the cadaver resuscitated. Well, how could you believe that? Well, it's a chance world. As Van Til put, send it to Ripley's Believe It or Not. Amazing. A body came back to life. Randy.
Don't you think also the reason people misinterpret this sometimes is not just because the facts speak themselves in general, but because he rejects their specific kind of evidence, which is evidentialist now. In other words, if you don't accept my evidence for the existence of God, then you don't accept the use of any evidence.
Right. What Randy's saying here is there are people who continue to call Van Til a fideist who rejects the use of rationality or evidence because he doesn't use their kinds of arguments. They think, well, if you're using evidence and proofs of God's existence in the traditional way, then you believe in a rational defense of Christianity. But if you don't use these arguments, then you don't believe in a rational defense of Christianity. Van Til says, guess what? Your arguments aren't very good arguments. I hope it doesn't depend only on that. But there are much better arguments that are rational. In fact, they, what? Rescue rationality. They're the most rational of rational arguments because they're transcendental.
If you accuse Van Til of rejecting evidence, or you have to accuse Calvin of the same thing.
Yeah, I suppose they'd say, yeah, so we do. But it just is not the case. Now, not only does Van Til not reject reasoning or appeal to facts, Van Til would actually use the argument from design, the argument from cause. He says, I would use the historic argument for the resurrection. There's nothing wrong with that. The point is, it only makes sense within the Christian worldview. Now, let's remember that apologetics doesn't serve only the purpose of moving the unbeliever to conversion. Most of you in this room, as I look around, probably at one time or another, used the evidential approach. Maybe you still do. Why is it that when we as Christians, this is the first thing I was exposed to, I latched right onto it. Why is it we as Christians, when we read that, we say, yeah, that's right. That shows, because it is true. And the other alternatives are absurd. But you see, that's because what? We already came with the framework where we believe this. We also think our framework is the only true one. We believe we have objectivity, and everybody else is introducing subjectivity. But if they introduce that subjectivity, and you let them do that, you don't challenge their philosophy of fact, then yeah, they're going to accept all sorts of things. One of the things that I thought was real impressive when I was younger, not that it isn't now, but I mean, I remember this, running into this argument. So why would somebody be willing to die for a lie? These people knew that Jesus didn't rise from the dead, and they let themselves die for that testimony. That doesn't make any sense. That seemed impressive once. But now I've played the devil's advocate so many times. You know, within a Christian worldview, I said, that's right. I think the reason why they were willing to die is because they knew it was true. But step outside of the Christian commitment to the truth of this. Is your view of human nature such that people never lie to accomplish other ends? Why couldn't the early Christians be willing to die because they had a political program by which they hoped to overthrow Rome. And part of the program called on impressing people with a resurrection claim. Now, I don't think that's true, but an unbeliever is going to say that's a more likely explanation for why they were martyred than that he really rose from the dead. All depends on the framework you put it in. So Van Til says, I would use the historic argument. It does help believers to be, more secure in their faith. And if unbelievers, are willing to step in, not so much to deceive them, but they're willing to be refuted ad hominem, I'll use that. By refuting ad hominem, what I mean here is the unbeliever says, nobody who is scientific, nobody who's historical could believe such ridiculous things as this. And then the evidentialist argument may not prove that it's true, but it can really show that this guy shouldn't be waving his hand and saying all rational people have got to say this or, well, yeah, that seemed to be pretty good evidence. Evidence of the very sort that you're willing to accept when we talk about who founded the city of Rome and who won the Battle of Carthage and so forth. So why is it now that you just, obviously you're bringing prejudices to, but you say you're not allowed to bring prejudice to. So what I'm getting at is we can embarrass the unbeliever that on his own terms, these evidences are much better than he would have expected. So there's plenty of reason why we use evidence, and we actually would say only within the transcendental framework does any appeal to evidence make sense. Okay, a fourth argument against Van Til that overlooks the transcendental character of his apologetic. John Warwick Montgomery has most popularized this argument, but I've seen it with others too. They say that what Van Til is giving us here amounts to nothing more but arbitrary and interchangeable authority claims. Arbitrary authority claims, and for that reason, interchangeable. So Montgomery writes this little parable where the Christian says, I've got my authority. It's the ultimate authority. You've got to accept it. And when you argue against me, I say, you're violating the authority. You're sinning, you heretic. You've got to accept it. Montgomery says, well, on that basis, somebody else can come along and say, I've got my authority. And the idea is these authority claims are interchangeable so that everything the Christian says, the non-Christian can say back, and you're just left with the standoff. Well, but the point is that these are not interchangeable. Van Til says you're comparing worldviews, not even in terms of formal or general considerations, concrete worldviews. The exact details of the Christian worldview are what we say has that authority. So it's not an empty authority claim, it's a claim to this worldview having authority. So once again, the transcendental nature of his argument has not been comprehended or appreciated. And then the last, in my first round of criticisms that I'll deal with, is the criticism that Van Til's apologetic leads to this ridiculous result, that unbelievers would know nothing at all then. Now, how can intelligent people make that big a mistake? I don't know. But intelligent people do it. I'm going to use a name here. I don't usually like to proceed this way, and I'm really not trying to embarrass somebody. I have a lot of respect for this man. Alvin Plantinga is a brilliant philosopher. He may not always do it the way I would do it, but no one can doubt that he's got a mind God's given him, okay? He's a smart man, well-read. When I first met Alvin Plantinga, I was still an undergraduate student in philosophy, and he had come to my college to present some lectures, and I had an opportunity for a few minutes at a break to talk to him. And I brought up the name of Van Til to get just some kind of, where are you coming from about this, what value do you see in it? And Plantinga, he didn't wave his hand. He's very polite and everything. But Plantinga basically said that Van Til, he says, since his apologetic requires me to think that unbelievers can't know about the digestive tract of a lion, I just don't see that this is realistic or practical at all. I said, what makes you think that? He says, well, Van Til says the unbeliever can't know anything. And we know that unbelievers know things. Well, that's sad, isn't it? And again, I'm not giving you a chump illustration here. I'm giving you a pretty smart guy. Well, he hasn't read Van Til or bothered to understand it. Van Til doesn't say unbelievers don't know things. He says they couldn't know things if their worldview were true. And our whole point is you do know things, and therefore, since your worldview can't account for it, you ought transcendental argument. We can take what the unbeliever knows and show from it that that would only be intelligible if his worldview were incorrect and ours were correct. Okay, so these arguments, which are fairly standard in the literature and so forth, against Van Til, all rest on a failure to appreciate. What was number 2? Rejects logic?
No, I'm sorry. I got it.
Okay. And now what I'd like to do is to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, well, 6 arguments that appreciate the transcendental nature of Van Til, but still criticize his